welcome to my sewing room. We have such an exciting show for you today. The title of the show is Freestanding Embroidery, and I have invited my very dear friend and business colleague, Lindee Goodall from Cactus Punch, to join me today. Lindee has brought some wonderful samples that will show you a little bit about what freestanding embroidery is, done on an embroidery machine, of course. This little clown has a freestanding tie. Isn't that adorable? And his little hair, which is fuzzy. This is a really cute idea on this little jacket. The little heart has been embroidered, and then it is put on to incorporate with a snap and make little buttons on this little girl's jacket. Absolutely precious. This little jacket has some really cute flowers on the back, some freestanding. It's little two-layered daisies that have been stitched on, and then there's a little flower pot down below. This is one of my very favorites. This is a really pretty design. It's a little jacket, a little vest with a butterfly out of black spangly on the front. Absolutely pretty butterfly that's freestanding, and then a matching butterfly and flower scene is on the back of this vest. A really pretty vest. This is truly one of the most beautiful embroidery scapes that I've ever seen. It has different fabrics that have the sky and the mountains and the farm, and then we have a lake, and then here's a church and a Victorian house, and then a mountain cabin, kind of a fishing lodge. This is truly a work of art. But now you might say, well, where is the freestanding embroidery? Well, here it is, right here on the corner. Little pansies are freestanding, and they're stitched all over. And you know what I especially love? The way the little leaf and one of the little pansies is even extending off the edge of the embroidery scape. And now won't you come along to the technique boards with me? This is the cutest project, this freestanding embroidery. First of all, I have a little walrus, and I go ahead and tape it into my hoop and run just with the needle, no thread, just run around. And then I'm going to put an arrow here to point to the top. And I also write in there that it's which applique it's from and that it is a walrus. Now, I cut this out, and because I've got to do a mirror image if I'm going to do a front and a back, so I'm going to use a pressure-sensitive fusible web for applique. I'm going to, oh, by the way, excuse me, I've got to go ahead and get my fabric on that. So I fuse the fabric to this particular fusible web, and I turn it over, and I trace one, and I turn it over, and I trace another one on the back. Then, of course, I cut them out. Now over here I have put a nylon organza in the hoop, and I have stitched around it one time just for placement. Now these are the fabrics of my two little walrus, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it off, and I'm going to stick one, because it has the sticky under there, I'm going to stick one on the front, and after I pull this one off, I'll pick it up and turn it over and stick it on the back. So I have a green on the outside and a green on the inside. Then I go ahead and run the applique stitching, go ahead and finish the machine embroidery, run the applique stitching, and then trim away the nylon organza, and I have the cutest little walrus, which is just the same on the front and the back. In other words, freestanding embroidery. I have invited my very dear friend and business colleague, Lindee Goodall, to come and share with you about this freestanding embroidery, which I think is so cute. Lindee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Martha.
And what are you going to share with us today?
Well, we're going to do some interesting types of embroidery. We're going to do embroidery that is standalone. And I have several pieces here. You saw the walrus, but here are some other examples. This little sunflower is actually sewn on a product that burns totally away. So when you're done, all you have left is thread. You can see that I've matched my thread in the bobbin in the top. And that's a choice you can make. You can match your thread so that it's reversible. It can work from either side. Here we have a beautiful poinsettia. And the poinsettia, what we've done here is we've embroidered the full design on some organza here, but on this design we skipped through the design and skipped the fill stitches and just did the outline. So you see the organza through there. So that's another option you can do. You can get creative with your designs.
Truly beautiful, Lindee.
Now sometimes when I sew, I want to sew the design on organza, and here's an example of organza here. This is white. I like to use this because it's nylon and it melts. Some other options we have, this is a cutaway backing. It also melts. We have wash away backings, but you want to pick one that doesn't stretch. You can see that this one stretches, so it might not be too suitable. This one doesn't stretch and it washes away with water. This one is a burn away. You can see that it's sort of a mesh product, and it supports stitches very well, and you burn it away with your iron. Now to go through the process of making this, it's just like applique, but we're going to do it two-sided. So on this particular one, I've used quilting template in my hoop. I've just taped a piece to the bottom of my hoop, sewed the first color change without any thread in my needle, cut it out. This is really nicer than the file folder templates because this will hold up much better. So if you're going to use your appliques a lot, I would opt for this method. Trace it on the back of your fusible web on the back of your fabric, one each side. Sew your outline, finish your design. Now I have this fabric already hooped. I just have 2 layers of organza here, no backing. And I'm going to put this in my machine. And I'm going to sew the design. Scissors. So I'm going to trim this thread. This is the first color change. We sewed it the first time on our template without any thread, so that we can get the exact shape of our design. Now we're sewing it for placement, just as you mentioned.
You know, Lindee, one of the things I love about this applique is it's so much faster, really, than machine embroidery. And it's another whole way to do machine embroidery, but this is really quick.
Oh yes, and we don't have thread that makes these little flowers.
No, we don't.
Have
little antique quilting fabrics.
So I'm going to take this out of my machine,
okay,
and I need to take the paper protector off the back, and I'm going to line one up exactly over my outline. I really like this particular type of fusible web because it's sticky. You don't need to spray it or iron it down before you position it in your hoop. And you do need to be quite careful about your placement. Make sure it's in the line. See, now this is not going to line up here, but because it's pressure sensitive, I can simply lift it up and reposition it until it's right.
And then you're going to put it in and go all the way around it again,
yes,
and then show us how you're going to, after you've done it, I know you have one that's already done, show us the wonderful trick on how you're going to get it cleaned up on the edges.
Now, here I've cut my design all the way out around the edge. And the next step is that I want to get rid of all these little pokey things sticking out. Since this is nylon, I can use a soldering iron. And I haven't heated this one up, but you simply go around the edge, and you can go around fairly quickly, and it melts it and fuses the fabric right up next to the design, so you not see any outside edges.
Now, Lindee, this is the first time we've ever had French sewing by soldering iron.
This is a wonderful tool. You need to confiscate this from your husband's toolbox. Be sure to wipe it off periodically because it does pick up melted debris from your fabric. And you know, I've made those handy little cases that you make for your curling irons. I've made a miniature one for my soldering iron.
Your soldering iron. This is a first at Martha's Sewing Room. Lindee, thank you so very much for being here today and for sharing this wonderfully fun technique.
You're welcome.
And next, Lindee has a project, Sewing for Your Baby. This just makes me happy. Lindee has used her wonderful, this is a bath, something to hang in the bath for a child's bathroom, and the most wonderful little sea urchins here, the baby sea, all the different sea animals that have been appliqued. They've even been appliqued here on this netting, and of course you'll put your bathtub toys in here, and that has a chance to dry out, and even here's a little fishing rod. Isn't that the most adorable towel hanger to take to the bathroom? This is But once again, using the 1930s prints. We've got the angelfish, the blue whale, the crab, the dolphin. This is for the nursery. This is the headboard for the crib, and this is the footboard for the crib. And it has the octopus and the puffer fish and it's just so cute, the angelfish, all done out of the 1930s quilting fabrics. And of course, in a nursery, you can't do without a quilt. So here is the quilt. Once again, the little fish, the iguana and the jellyfish and the killer whale are all done out of these. And a lobster, I just love him. This is all applique. It's machine embroidery, but it's really applique because you have your wonderful little fabrics underneath there. I just absolutely would love this for a nursery. And since we have 2 more grandbabies coming, I might have to do one of these for a fish room. Lindee has a really cute project for you to make with the freestanding little sea animals. And Lindee, I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you tell them what you have done for the show.
Well, here I've made a baby mobile to go along with my quilt and bumper pads. And these are from the A to Z baby sea animals. And I thought it'd be fun to do, A to Z and the baby sea animals. And the mobile picks up the colors from the quilt, and we picked designs that didn't have embroidery extending off into space. So these are pretty solid embroideries. And we just showed the technique on how to do the freestanding embroidery, but to make the rest of the mobile, what you do is you take an embroidery hoop and you saw it in half, and then what you do, actually we sawed it this way, so that this part up here becomes the hanger. And I just simply made some casings, slid them on, gathered them up, took my 3D embroideries, hand sewed some ribbon and hand stitched them up here, and I have a mobile. Very easy, very quick.
Easy. And then you have your little ribbon, and you could either put it on a hanger or, as we have, a little place to hang it.
You can hang it from the ceiling.
This is the cutest concept, the freestanding baby sea animals. I just love it. And I love your 1930s prints that you use for both the animals and for the quilt. Oh, Lindee, thank you so much for being here. You've brought such pleasure to our viewers. And now I have a craft for you. You can tell that I love crafts. And this is the most fun little card. Now, what these cards are really meant for is to put photographs in. However, I have some other ideas for you. For those of you that collect antique postcards, and I love this one, it has a 1-cent stamp on the back, and I really can't see the address, but it just is addressed to Mr. Man O'Neill in Carrollton, Georgia, period. No zip code, no nothing. If you have any antique postcards, you might slip them into one of these little card carriers, these little photograph holders. This one is a really pretty one, I think. A little bit of lace and a little bit of ribbon gathered around and stitched by machine. Now, how do you gather that little ribbon? It's really very easy to do. I ran a straight stitch along the edge of the ribbon, and then all you do is come down to the bottom. After you run the straight stitch by machine, by the way, you could run it by hand, but there's no reason to when you can run it by machine. So you run a little straight stitch, and then you slip the gathers up, and then you can carefully just lay them around any way you would like for them to go and machine or hand stitch them. This one I think is an especially pretty one for those of us that love machine embroidery. Here it is, the card with the cross stitch, the machine cross stitch already in it. What a nice present to give to someone who loves sewing. All you do is do your machine cross stitch on a piece of fabric and then ever so gently slip it in. Here is a really nice one for Mother's Day. There is pink on the background, a piece of lace over it, and a little charm that says Mother. Now all you need to do is get your pink fabric and then either fuse or glue or just somehow attach the little white lace to it and get your little charm and put it on the front and then slip it into the card, and then you will have a pretty Mother's Day card or any other occasion. And people who love to sew really do appreciate a really special greeting card like this. And now we have a segment called Sew Kool for Kids. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today on the Sew Kool for Kids portion, my daughter, Joanna Pullen Hammett. Joanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
What are you going to do today?
Well, I am going to make a hair scrunchie. There's, every child loves to pull their hair back in a hair scrunchie, and it's so easy to do. First of all, you take your strip of fabric, And we are going to fold it right sides together like so.
In half.
In half. Lengthwise, that's right. And then you simply place it under the machine. And all you're going to do is sew a straight stitch all the way down to the end of the fabric. And this is just a straight stitch, so this is a great stitch for kids to do
because kids can really
because it's not hard. Moms, always be sure that your kids keep their hands away from the needle. It's very important.
You know, Joanna, I think this is such a fun project too because they can use any leftover
It is.
scraps.
That's right. Anything.
Or if they've made a pair of jams or something, they can always make a hair piece to go
with it.
That's right.
And then we're going to cut it. After the fabric is sewn together, you're simply going to turn it right side out. So when you turn it right side out, it will look like this. Then we're going to use a bodkin to insert the elastic. So all you do is simply put the elastic in.
Bodkin and all.
Bodkin and all, the whole 9 yards.
I think kids would like the name Bodkin.
Bodkin,
That's a wonderful name.
And once the elastic is at the edge, all you're going to do is again straight stitch.
Is it right in the middle?
It's right in,
Okay.
It doesn't really matter, but I have it right in the middle.
But you could put it on either side.
Either side.
Any way you want to, okay.
You straight stitch it, and you're going to cut. And then you take your bodkin, and we're going to scrunch it till it gets to the end. I think this is such a neat little gadget, this bodkin.
This bodkin. I think the kids will really like that too.
And then you release the elastic, like that. And then again, you're going to do the same thing, straight stitch the elastic onto the fabric.
So you just measure around the ponytail and see how tight to make the elastic.
Okay.
Real thick hair gets a short, long
That's
elastic. Real thin hair gets a short elastic.
And then you kind of rearrange your scrunchy material. Next, you're going to take the two ends of the fabric. There they are, like this. And again, we're going to straight stitch. Place the fabric underneath the machine.
You know, Joanna, if anybody had a serger, this particular
That's
step would be a
right.
great
That's
one on the
right.
serger too, don't you think so? And then
Okay.
it would be all finished.
And next, do you see how I have a little fabric left over? That might need a little trimming.
Okay.
So let's trim it just a hair. And we're going to perform a French seam. So all I do is turn it over like this. And you want to sew one more time, straight stitch, and you want to get as close to the edge as you can. Your needle as close to the edge as you can. And we're going to straight stitch again.
You know, French
There you
seams
go.
have always been kind of hard.
I
That's the reason I
know,
love. That's the reason I love that serger. But you know, the
And
kids can
that's-
learn to make a French seam too.
That's right. And now you've got a scrunchie. And your end product looks like this.
Now show them, in case they don't know what a
That's
scrunchie
right.
is, show them what
So
you do
you
with
can
a
use
scrunchie.
a scrunchie and you can just put it back in your hair.
And you're doubling it
And
twice.
a ponytail. And
Oh,
there's a
right.
simple, quick project for your children.
And you know what, Joanna? It makes it fun and easy.
It is.
And I think it's really important always to tell your child they did
is.
it perfectly.
All by themselves. That's
and maybe
right.
make some for their friends. Wouldn't that be fun to have several little girls to come to the house and have everyone make a
That's
scrunchie?
right.
And it's always fun to say I made it myself.
It is.
And next I have a quilt square for you. I have two quilt squares to share with you that I think you're really going to like the techniques. They're variations of Australian window pane. This quilt square has the pink on the outside and the white stippled fabric on the inside of the heart, and then it just has a really pretty decorative scallop which goes around it. Now if you'll slip over here with me to this heart right here, this one has an organza in the middle with a white backing, a machine embroidery, and as you can see a double stitched row around the outside, a double stitched row of the pink fabric. And these are two unusual hearts. Let's see how they're made. First, to make the first kind, the Australian window pane, we have a layer of organza backing the pink Nylona. Now, if you want to have some stippling in behind this, you could use this stippled fabric, stippled organza rather than just the plain organza. The next step is to straight stitch all the way around the heart, attaching the organza. And then we're going to trim away the excess organza just like we do an Australian window pane. We're going to also then turn it to the other side and trim away the pink Nylona on the inside. Then after we trim it away, we will use stabilizer and go back and do a heavy zigzag around the heart, and then come back and do the little scallops around the heart. And of course, if you want to put an embroidery in the middle, you can certainly do so, either on the organza before you attach it or after you attach it. Now the other heart is also a version, sort of Australian window pane. We have the organza, which is behind, and we're going to go ahead and do the embroidery. Make your cross in the middle, do your embroidery, and then we're going to put the Nylona on top of the organza. To attach them, we're going to do 2 rows, little teeny zigzag, tiny zigzag, 1 row, and then go back in tiny zigzag on the other row. And then we will come back in and trim away the excess organza, and then we will come in and trim away the Nylona, and you see we've got the embroidery exposed here. And then after trimming this heart away, we will go back and simply zigzag all the way around the heart in a pink thread. You're not going to use blue thread, but in a pink thread. And that way we will have both kinds of Australian window pane hearts, just a little bit different. One has the zigzag and the scallop around the edge. The other has just 2 rows of stitching exposing the pretty embroidery and the organza in the middle. And now won't you come along with me to my attic? I have the most beautiful slip to share with you today. I bought this slip as a part of a wedding trousseau at Portobello Road in London. It is absolutely the prettiest slip I've ever seen in my life, and I think you might agree with me too. I think I'm going to hold it up here so I can put my hands on sections of it just to show you better. It has squared sections. The embroidery goes down into the square, and they're pretty miters, as you can see. This is a mitered petticoat. One of the things I really love best about this petticoat is the fact that we have those circular insets, and the circular insets are really, it's a Swiss embroidery. And a long time ago, and even today sometimes in antique stores, you can find little round motifs, and I'm sure that's what that was. And by the way, these embroideries are Swiss. This is not hand embroidery. And there's a little circle, which is so pretty, and then the gathered lace around it. I also love the edging on these squares, which are stitched into the petticoat, which has an insertion and 2 rows of edging. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that these sections, this is a square all around that section. And that's the way the whole petticoat is put together, with either a square or a half of a square. Now, the petticoat also has a beautiful, beautiful under petticoat. So, oh, this was some elaborate petticoat. Now, this under petticoat, as you can see, goes down and has ribbon with beading run through the ribbon. And I believe there are 4 rows of edging. There is no insertion there, just 4 rows of edging. And are you ready for this? The petticoat has yet another under petticoat. This one just has a simple ruffle. So this was quite a petticoat. It had 3 layers of Swiss batiste, the under ruffle, the second layer with an elaborate edging, and then this absolutely fabulous, super magnificent layer that had the squares turned sideways and the half squares. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I have loved visiting in your home, and most importantly, I'd like to invite you to come back next time.